the laser cutter. Overall, I think this is an excellent laser cutter for the money, especially. $319, it's a no-brainer. But the one thing that has bugged me about this thing since day one is this bed. This bed is absolute crap, in my opinion. It's got this great big hole in it. Now, granted, it had a metal thing that sat over this. It's made for a specific purpose. And this bed, for our purpose, just isn't very good because of this great big hole. Likewise, it wouldn't be that great if the bed was perfectly stationary because you can't do much with it. I want to make a bed that goes up and down where I can control my height. This tool was given to me quite a while back, caused all kinds of controversy because I modified it, but it's a great tool. It's a jack that goes on the inside of a guitar and can jack things up. The truth of the matter is we just don't use it that often. I mean, once in a blue moon we need this thing. We need this thing all the time. So I'm thinking this thing would serve me much better if it was in here as the base of my height adjustment. I can make this adjuster knob come out from front here, and we'd have the adjustment right here, and we could adjust the height. We can measure off of these sidebars to get the right optimal height. So that's my plan. The first thing I'm going to do is remove this piece of junk aluminum that's in here. And honestly, I don't know what size these are, and I'm not even sure if they're Torx, but I think they're Torx. So we'll see if they are. It's hard to tell, really, just looking at them, if they're Torx or if they're something else. They look like they are Torx. They're crooked. I mean, even these things, they're not even in straight or anything. They're bent over, and really poor construction on this part. So I'll be glad to just get this mess out of my way. I'll bring you back, or I'll show you the next step after I get this piece out of here. I've already spoiled this, but these standoffs were crooked, and this one back here you can maybe still see how crooked it is, but you know, vertical is this way, this thing is leaning this much. It's unbelievable how crooked these are. That would be vertical about there. It's amazing. This one's crooked too back here. But anyway, those were the standoffs that held that plate of aluminum. We won't have a plate of aluminum anymore, I don't think. I don't think we'll need these standoffs at all anymore. I'll think on this a little bit more and do a little more designing in my head, and I'll show you what I come up with. Well, my friends, I was going to get all complicated and be Mr. Joe Machinist on this, and I've decided simple is better. I just looked through my toolbox and had this 1/4" extension. Fits it like a glove, fits it really tight. It's got a detent that holds it in there. Then I've got this extra little 1/4" drive socket that fits it, which can sit on the outside of this box here. So all I really need is a hole, then just fasten this down and I'm done. It's much simpler process than making it all complicated. And the only negative of this is that this ratchets, but that's not a big deal. I mean, I'm a big boy. I can turn that and get it to go the direction I want it to go. So it'll save me a lot of hassle and trouble making a whole bunch of parts. And if I don't like this, I can always make a piece that fits on here solid. But I think that's the way to go. Now the negative of this operation is I got to get in here to drill at least the pilot hole to get it in the right spot. I've already marked it, and the drill just barely fits the space, so I'm going to try to drill a little tiny pilot hole and see how that goes. Here I go. My problem is I can't get my head in there to tell if I'm in the right spot. And I think that's it. I think there may be 2 layers of that. The hole came off just barely on camera. Right there's the hole. So I'll get myself a drill that will fit this, and I'll be right back. So it looks like a 5/16 drill will do the right thing here based on my measurements and everything. That was my guess originally anyway, so it worked out. And now we'll drill this See if I can get the camera down just a little bit more. There it is, and you can see it a little bit better. Hey, it's a Harbor Freight drill. What do you want? For $19, you can't beat it. Okay, well that works great. Now let's see if my ratchet fits through it. And of course, it barely does. Oh, it's just perfect, really. See, I wanted it to fit tight because I don't want a lot of slop in this. And so it fits perfectly and it spins perfectly. And now we can see if it lines up with this perfectly. And that's going to be the tricky part. And it looks like it does. So now I can adjust this from the outside, and it seems to be working. But I can tell I probably won't like the ratchet part of this. Though I don't have to move it very often, so it may not be a big deal. So now the next question is, how do I attach this to this? I've already drilled this hole at this height. Had I thought about this before, I might have actually put a pad under there that I could screw down. Now that I've already drilled the hole, I don't really want to do that. This has got a pad on it, so if I put a piece of metal that's the same thickness of this pad, I could screw it down. I think that's what I'll do. I'll find me a piece of metal that's the same thickness as this pad and then screw it down to this base, and then it won't move. That's what I'm going to do. So I'll be back when I get that figured out. Well, I've got everything figured out. This board here will sit on top of the jack and adjust, and we've done dry runs with that, and it works really well. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. The only issue is how to attach all of this. And I was thinking about getting complicated and drilling holes and screws and all that stuff. But you know, sometimes simple is just easy and better. And you can also undo simple a lot of times when you can't undo something more complicated. So I think, believe it or not, I'm just going to CA glue this jack in place to this aluminum. You can always use heat on metal to get CA glue to turn loose. So we could always put one of our heating irons in here or whatever to get this to turn loose if we need it to come apart. But I really think simple is the best policy, and so that's the way I'm going to go. I think I'm just going to glue this piece in place first. Just put 4 drops of CA glue on it and turn it over and set it in place. And my thought is that it will probably stick fairly easy and fairly quickly, and I think it has. That's the little pad there to take up the space. Then I need to put this in place, but I need to make sure this is going to line up, so I better do that before I put the glue on this. I think I can just get the glue on this and turn it down. Well, I got to get the right side down. This is the side that goes down. It would be bad to glue the wrong side down. Alright, so I'm just going to put a little glue on this and turn it down, and I've already got it marked where it fits on here, so, and it's already stuck. And I didn't get it exactly where I marked it, but oh my goodness. There it is. Now, will it stay? I don't know if that worked or not. I may have to do that one again. Nope, that didn't work. But like I've said before, the thing about CA glue is it sticks to itself better than it sticks to anything else. So, we'll try it again. I think that's going to be just fine. Yep, it seems solid now. I've already got it all the way down, so let's see if it'll go up. Yep, there it goes. Just no problem at all. It's going right up. And then to go down, just have to reverse the ratchet there and go down. I think that's going to be fine. Now, the next question is, how do we attach this? And again, I was going to get all complicated with screws and everything. But in this particular case, instead of using CA glue, I think I'm just going to use silicone caulk. Silicone caulk is really sticky and holds really well, but yet I could tear this loose if I had to. And I think that's the way I'm going to go. Again, just keeping it simple and not making this thing too complicated. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put a dab of silicone caulk there, set this in place, and let it set overnight. We're at the end of the day today anyway, and come in the morning and this thing should be ready to go. I already had white silicone caulk in the tube, so white it is. But it is 100% pure silicone. And I'm going to carefully place this down in here, get it centered. Don't have a lot of room in there for clearance, so I'm going to raise it up. Get it up here where the clearance issues are, and that way we'll know it'll clear. That should work just fine. Now I'll put a little weight on that. Don't need a whole lot of weight, I don't think. Something in the center. And we'll let that set overnight and see how it turned out in the morning. Well, it's the next morning. This, I guess you'd call it a platen, is in there, and it is stable, and it adjusts perfectly with this knob. I can get it to the exact right height. We are going to put a sacrificial board under whatever we're cutting. Doesn't really, matter as long as it's, big enough to handle the area we're cutting. We're only going to be cutting this little area. And what I did was I made this tool so that we could adjust the height and know that it's right. This is set at the optimum height. So in other words, you raise the table up until your work touches this. And when it touches that, you know that the laser beam is focused at that point. We did a little, off testing to do that, off camera testing. And basically all it amounts to is you just prop a board up like this on a little ramp, and you watch the laser go up the ramp, and then you pick out the spot where the laser beam is the narrowest, which happened to be right there. You measure down accurately, and that's what we came up with. So anyway, bottom line is we should at least be fairly optimized compared to just guessing like we've always been doing. So this is going to work pretty well. I'm going to put a piece of paper in here, and I'm going to set the machine really very light and let the paper just tell me where it's going to cut, and then I can put this exactly in that spot and be ready to go. Okay, so what I'm doing is a test cut. I've got the paper in there, and this will tell me where this is going to cut. I have it turned down real low, so all it does is just make a mark on the paper. So there it goes. I have it set very light, so it's cutting a very light line there. I'm not even sure you can see the line in the camera lens, but I can see it with my eye. And the benefit of that is I can take my piece of wood now and lay it right over that, and I know exactly where it's going to cut. Okay, now that I have my pattern there, I can lay this piece of wood right directly over it, and it should cut out my pieces now exactly there. So all I need to do is turn it up to an appropriate level. So I just turn it up here. I'm going to turn it up to about 18, 19, somewhere in there. There's 19.6. It's just kind of a guess every time. And, we're trying to learn more, and, the more accurate we can do everything, like adjusting the height, helps us become more accurate on our power. So anyway, that's the power I think I'm going to need. Here we go. Well, that looks like it's done. Now the question is, did it cut all the way through? And it did. There you go. It cut all the way through perfectly, actually. So now I can grab my sacrificial board and everything and move it to my desk and sort the pieces out. Once again, for you friends, it's just been mere seconds, but for me, I don't even know. It's been at least 24 hours, I can tell you that. Since I worked on the 12 string, that is. I am ready to start testing the rosette. But before I do that, I have one question for you, and that is, what have you done with my Dremel tool? Somebody must have misplaced it. I have looked everywhere. I have racked my brain and thought of where could I have used my Dremel tool that wasn't right here at my bench, you know, and I can't think of anything. I'm sure one of these days I'll run across it and I'll find it and I'll go, oh yeah, now I remember that. But as of right now, I have no Dremel tool, which is what I've always cut the circle for the rosette. So after an exhaustive hour-plus search, probably 2 hours at this point, I have decided to give up on the Dremel and go to the Proxxon. The Proxxon, you know, already has a great base, so that part of it's easy. It came with a circle attachment, but it was just a little needle that you stick in your wood and then you spin it around. Well, I'm not big into the needle thing, so I adapted that. I pulled the needle out and I drilled a hole where the needle used to be, and I've always used a 5/32 drill as my pivot. So here's what it looks like now. So this is just a test board laying here, and I can drop this pivot right on there, and then I can spin the Proxxon around and cut a hole. Now, our outer ring of this design, right now it's set up for 126 millimeters. And I'm not 100% sure that's where I want it, but I think it is. So anyway, that's part of what this test is for, is to kind of look at it and see how it looks and see if it's going to work. And the other part of the test is once I route that, I can start testing my inlay and see if I like this inlay. So it's a whole bunch of tests here, all wrapped up in one. So let me plug this device in, because they work better plugged in. Let's see if we can get something to happen here. Let me raise it up slightly, turn it on, and we'll drop it in place. Well, that was fairly straightforward and fairly simple. I'm assuming it worked okay. It looks good. Looks like a nice, perfect circle. I'm going to take a piece of my inlay, and I don't even know if it's the right size. I didn't size anything. I just, you know, I didn't test anything ahead of time here, so this may not fit. Looks like it's going to be pretty close to fitting. So right now, putting them in, actually putting them in upside down, because there's a slight bevel in the way these are cut, and the bevel fits better if I turn it down. But that looks pretty good, so I would say I just need to measure this, number one, and see if I really did get my 126 millimeters. So I'll put my little gadget here on millimeters and measure across. 125.83. I'd call that 126 millimeters, wouldn't you? Yeah, that's what I'd call that. Just for a rough guess, you know, and that's all I could do was just guess, because, you know, it's pretty hard to measure that. Well, let me do some thinking off camera here and see what my next step's going to be. Off camera, I've made a little mark as to how far in I want to move this router. The tricky thing about moving this is that you have, you know, adjust it with this Allen wrench. I wish I had a real precise way of doing this, and I guess I could set up an indicator on this now that I think about it. Yeah, but for this one, I'm not going to do that. But now that I think about it, I may make a real precise way of moving this for the future. But right now, I'm still kind of playing and testing. I've got a mark there that I can see, and I'm finding the best way to move this is just to turn it on. Slide it into my mark right there, and then turn it off. And then just tighten it down. And that may be accurate enough, you know, I may not need to go to the indicator deal, but on the other hand, we could do that, and the indicator would be very accurate, of course, to the thousandth. I'm just going to go for it and see how that works. I guess to be smart with it, I'll check it here and see how the pieces fit, rather than route the whole thing and then go, uh-oh, it's too big. This could be the part we could pretend that this is underneath the fretboard. These pieces are made for in and out. And this is a piece of the outer here. And there's different colors, and I've got to work through all that yet, but for now I'm just going to try to fit 3 pieces in here. So these are the 2 outer pieces, and now I'll get an inner piece and see if it fits up. And looks like it might be just a tiny bit tight, maybe not. I think I could force that into place, which would be better if it was forced in. In fact, I've kind of got it in there. That looks pretty darn good. What I'm planning to do is put alternate colors. There'll be 3 colors, and they're going to be alternated like bricks all the way around this, and then there'll be an outer purfling and an inner purfling. So that's how I'm doing it. I think that's good enough that I can go ahead and cut the rest of the circle. So I'll do that in just a moment. Okay, so let's finish cutting this circle.
Of yesterday, I wonder back to my little cabin door.
That looks like that worked just fine. I'll clean that up and then we'll do some testing. Well, off camera, I started fitting a few pieces in there. I'm going to go ahead and fit them all in there in this test piece and then take them back out. I wanted to kind of see that the design is going to work out okay and let you all see how it's looking here. The trick of it is I have to pull from the different piles. I have the longer ones. These are the outside ones, and they're a little bit longer, so they have to go to the outside. These are a little shorter, so they have to go to the inside. And then you've got 3 color choices, so you got to make sure you get the right color at the right place. And they fit in there, but they don't have any extra room, so they're in there fairly tight, which is good. Well, I'll keep fitting all those in there, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get her done. Well, I think I've proven to myself that it's going to work, and I also think it's going to look just fine. If you look at that design there, you can see what it's doing. Now keep in mind there'll be a ring of purfling around the inside and the outside. And of course the sound hole will be cut out. So it's going to look pretty cool. I think I'm going to stop there on the test and go live and see what happens. Well, my friends, I'd say it's all over but the crying here, so we might as well get it done. I've got the router still set for the inner part of the circle, so I just have to remember that it's set for the inner diameter here, and when I measure it, I need to push it to the outside. So that's the only key thing there that I have to remember. Hopefully we can make it happen. Okay, I'll turn it on just before I let it go down. Actually, I want to start everything right up at the, now that I think about it, I want to start everything up under the fretboard in case there's a a mistake, then it would be covered under the fretboard. So here we go. And the very first thing I want to do is just check the depth before I go any further. I'm pretty sure the depth is about right, but I moved it a little bit because I wasn't happy with it. Actually, that's a hair shallow, but a hair shallow is not too bad. I'll go ahead and go a little bit deeper. Try that again. Boy, it don't take long to go from a hair shallow to a hair too deep. That's just a little deeper than I want. My goodness. Hard to adjust.
I stroll beside an old rock garden. I saw a familiar scene.
That's pretty close right there, so we'll just go with that.
Once more, I heard the organ softly playing.
That looks real nice. And just do one more check here just to see depth-wise what it looks like. That looks real nice. It's just about perfect. Right around 51 thousandths, and my pieces are about 55 thousandths, so that'll give me a little bit to sand off. Okay, that's the inside of the circle. I have to remember that. And now I've got to move it to the outside. And in order to do that, the way I'm going to do it is I'll take one of these inside pieces, set it in the groove, which actually they don't fit the groove now I think about it, because they just don't fit perfectly. That bit is just a tiny bit tight. So I'll have to set it on there best I can and put one of the outside pieces up against it like that. And then I take the very fine tip pencil and I mark it like so, and then I put this back in place and I just move it out to that mark as it's running. I just stop just right at the mark. I have to loosen these two bolts up. And I'll turn it on, move it right there, and lock it down. Just going to double check that these are tight. I think they are, but won't hurt to check. Okay, now I'm just going to make a little bit of a cut there under where the fretboard would be and kind of test the fit. So here's an outside piece. And here's an inside piece. And I'd say they're going to fit. They look like they might be just a hair tight. I believe I can make them work. I want them good and tight because that way you don't have any big gaps. And so we're going to go with that. Double checking the height here too, just one more time. Just about flush. It's just pretty good. Thinking with the glue and everything, typically they stick up a little bit. So I'm just going to go with that. So here we go.
Music came so sweet and low. I heard my mother sweetly sing.
Okay, now I'm going to move it to the center a little bit and go around there one more time, just because there's a little bit of a tiny ridge. Moving it right about where the center is there, and I'll go around it one more time. We'll clean that up and see what it looks like. Well, you can see there I've started fit in the first two pieces, and they fit really tight and everything feels just fine. I can feel them just barely proud of the surface, which is just fine with me. I guess I'll pull them out and we'll start putting the glue in there and get these laid up. I'll show you a little progress along the way. Well, I've been thinking about this. Kayla was also suggesting that I ought to go ahead and route these other rings before I inlay this. It's really kind of 6 1/2, half a dozen the other, as long as your inlay lays pretty flat. And this one does lay really flat. You can just barely feel it proud of the surface. I'm not too worried about it one way or the other. However, one of the reasons I wasn't going to do it was I wasn't sure what I was going to do about these rings. I really want to use the purfling that John Manure has sent me, and I'm going to do that. It fits the cutter that I happen to have in the tool really well. I just did a test fit on that. So anyway, make a long story short, I've marked off the two places where I want to route a channel for this purfling, and I'm going to try to line that up right now. It's mostly going to be by eye. I'm going to do the inside one first. I believe that'll do it right about there. So I just want to lock it down. I'm going to spin this blade if I can. I just want to turn it a little bit just so I can see if it looks like it's all the way out to the edge. I think that's it right there. That should be fine. Tighten it the rest of the way down. Okay. Now on this one I only have to make one pass each. Alright, that knocks that one out. Now I'll go in and do the other one. I'll have to move the cutter way out on this one. I think I'll go ahead and vacuum up this little mess here first. I believe that's right where I want it. And turn it on and we'll get the rest of the channel routed here. Well, that's what she looks like up close. The very inner ring is for the purfling, the middle ring is for the inlay, the outer ring is for the other purfling. I'm debating on whether I want to go ahead and cut the hole now or if I want to wait on that. Let me see here. I want a 4-inch plus hole. Wow. It's going to be tight. So I'll go ahead and do all the inlay first because it is going to be a close cut to the inside purfling. So I'll go ahead and do all the inlay first. I've started putting the pieces in, just using Titebond original glue again, as I typically do. The tricky part of this for me is remembering which pile to pull them from. As I mentioned earlier, some are longer than the others. The outside ones are a little bit longer than the inside ones, and to make the design work out. So I have to try to remember to do that correctly. Not quite sure why they're getting tighter, but they're getting tighter again. We had that problem with the dry fit too. So I don't think it's the glue swelling it up. Okay, well I got half of the circle done there, and I'll clean that all up and I'll get the rest of this done and I'll show you what it looks like. It's a little bit rough looking right now because it's still dirty. You don't have all the glue cleaned off of it and everything, but they give you a little bit of an idea. I guess the next thing to do would be to work on bending that purfling and see if we can get it in the slot. That's going to be fun because it's Paduke, it's red, white, red, and it's going to be fun getting it in there. But I think we can do it if we try hard enough. Got to get it bent first, of course. So we'll move over to the bending iron. Well, I tried to force this in there, and the truth is that the slot is so tight, and I think this stuff has swollen, and the slight kinking and things is making it difficult to fit it in there. So I'm going to try to enlarge the slot just ever so slightly. And we'll see how that works.
As off she did so long ago. She sang.
I barely took anything off of that, so I'm not sure that's going to do it. Let's see if it'll go in there. Well, it might be enough. Some of it's going in. It's not fully cooperating, but it's not terrible either. I believe it's going to work. I believe that will do it. It's in there, and I think because I put it in there without any glue, I think I'm going to just go ahead and try the CA glue deal. That's a little dangerous, but I don't want to take it back out. I'm afraid if I take it back out, I might end up with problems. It seems to be working pretty well in there as it is. Although the CA glue thing could be a real disaster, I have to admit. I'm just going to try it to a certain point. Looks like it's working. Okay, that seemed to work pretty well, so I'm going to try it some more. I believe that worked just fine. I'm pretty happy with that. I think I can make that look like something. So now I'll go back to the bending iron and bend the inner circle. Hopefully we can make it work. Well, it seemed to work pretty well. I tell you, John did a nice job making this purfling. He used Titebond 3 glue, which is waterproof, and that was a big help because this didn't separate. The layers did not separate as I was wetting them down and heating them up. This seems to be going in there okay. I'm going to just try to get it in there without making any changes. It's going in actually easier than the first one. Maybe you just learn how to do it a little better on the second one, I guess. Yeah, like I've got a little spot right here that's not going in for some reason. Fight me at the very last here. Thought I had it. I think we got it up to a certain point. Now we just got this last little tiny bit to go. I believe I got it. It fought me. It didn't want to go that last little bit there, but it seems like it's going. I'm going to have to test it a little bit here right on the very end. Yeah, I think it's fine. We'll put the CA glue in on it and get her locked in place. I believe that takes care of that. And I think it's going to look really nice when it's all cleaned up and smoothed out. There's what she looks like in rough form. I think it's a real pretty rosette. Keeping in mind that all the wood on this middle ring, all the pieces, were all cut right here on the farm. The inner and outer ring were provided by John Manura of AccuSlice. So I'm going to plane this down to smooth because those purflings were quite tall. And I've just got to be very careful planing this down that I don't gouge the top. Another way I could do this is run it through a thickness sander and just knock this down, but I don't trust my commercial thickness sander. It's got too many little idiosyncrasies, and I'm afraid it would gouge the top or something else. So I'm going to pass on that option and just do it the manual way. It'll take me a little bit longer, but it'll be a nice job when I'm done. I just don't want to get in too big a hurry and, like I said, accidentally gouge the top. So I'll show you what it looks like when we're finished with it. Got her fairly level. I'm going to see if I can get it the rest of the way with the sander. I tell you, this little sander is really a great sander for this kind of work. It's very smooth. Got the 2 orbiting discs on the inside and doesn't leave any marks that I can see. Does a great job. Does a fast job too, I think. You know, I don't get any kickback. They don't know I'm telling you this. So the model number on this sander is RK4248K. And it's a Rockwell. It's a really nice sander. I think you would be happy if you bought one. Like I said, I get nothing out of it. That's really smooth. You cannot feel it at all now. At all. So now we can cut the ringer out, cut the center out of there. So I'll set up to do that.